to take
Europeans
place.
didn't come to Hawaii, and
I think it's
if you
incredibly
value
visible.
mountain climbing,
Right.
and if the
that's the
battery's
future?
all at the bottom of the car, and it's go like NASCAR, you're getting
I understand.
okay.
But
So
wouldn't
that is how I feel.
yeah, that seems like fuckery. Yeah, there's a lot of.
But
like,
but in Harry Potter, the
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Do you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is?
I don't.
Neil deGrasse Tyson is the perfect example of someone that says a lot of words that sound big to the general public, but actually doesn't know what they're talking about at all.
So am I not going to understand anything he says right now then?
No, you'll understand what he's talking about because he's an astrophysicist, which has nothing to do with what he's about to talk about. And he does this all the time. He has a hard time with letting other people talk. And
A bit like Piers then.
A bit like Piers. So these two are a match made in heaven. And he's always talking about things that have nothing to do with his profession. Literally nothing. He did this with Top Gun. When the Top Gun film came out, he critiqued the film saying how fake it was and the stunts Tom Cruise were doing were not legit and they couldn't really happen. And somebody that is an actual jet fighter came out and debunked everything he said. And I'll leave a link to that in the description so you guys can watch that video because it's actually hilarious. Neil deGrasse Tyson spoke with so much conviction about something he actually knew nothing about because he was using words like muck or he was talking about the F-111. Everyday people might see that and think, oh, you know, this guy, he knows what he's talking about because he's using words that you would use to describe a jet fighter or whatever. But he actually didn't know what he was talking about. So I'll leave that video in the description so you can watch him make a fool of himself. Today, he's talking about splitting people by categories and not gender. So basically, he's saying that scrap gender, scrap the fact that we have male sports and female sports. Forget that. We're going to mix everyone together and categorize them based on lung capacity, height, weight, that kind of bullshit. So I'm going to let him, make the comments that he makes because he really makes some stupid remarks here. And then you guys tell me what you think.
Neil, let's talk about gender. Gender is probably the most divisive theme in the world right now. It's almost like you can't even talk about it without people losing their minds. And I guess at the center of it is this core belief, which many put forward, that there is a biological science towards sex, and then there is gender. And that is an identity issue which is separate to sex and biology. What is your view of this, and why has it got so toxic, and what is the way through this debate?
Yeah, so I think I have some insights there brought to you by how we end up classifying things in the universe. In the universe, very few things are discrete in what they are. There's, in almost all cases, a continuum between one kind of object and another. Now, it's hard to have conversations about continua, so you divide it up into as many categories as is sensible, and then you have a way to discuss what's going on in the universe with others. So here we have human beings, where let's go back to the bio part of this, where you have the chromosomes, X, Y. There's intersex, where one of the chromosomes is doubled up. No one is arguing that. Just give that to the biologists, and you can call that what sex? Is it male sex or female sex? I don't have a problem with that. What I do know is that in the real world, in a free country where, because I remembered some document that said the pursuit of happiness, it seems to me freedom, which is so heavily championed in the West, is accompanied by a pursuit of happiness. Okay. That's foundational to what I'm about to say.
He is saying a lot of words and none of it has anything to do with anything. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking this is leading somewhere. I assure you it is not.
Yeah, he sounds like he's saying a whole bunch of nothing.
He's saying a whole bunch of nothing.
He's just saying words.
He recognized that biology is an observable reality and it's an objective reality. There's male and there's female. But he tried to give it to the biologists. And then he went on to say, in real life. But biology exists in real life. We use biology to separate the genders. That's why we don't have men and women in separate sports. This is a very, very simple situation. And he's trying to make it more complex than what it is. This is literally somebody that has been bought and sold. He's an intelligent guy in his own field, but because of his, let's say, extended vocabulary, he can word things in a way that will make people second guess themselves. But he is saying a lot of nothing right now. But I'll let him continue chatting shit.
So, We all know growing up that in the classroom, every year, there were girls who were a little more tomboyish. In fact, tomboy, who came up with that word? They're really tom girls, right? A tomcat is a boy cat.
This is the worst.
A tom girl would be a sort of a boy girl, right? I don't know where tomboy came from, but there were tom girls. They didn't wear skirts. They wanted to play in the mud with the boys. We know they existed. There were boys that were slightly effeminate relative to the others. We know they existed. And so, but we had words for them. They were ridiculed, whatever. We live in a time now where people are emboldened to say, you know, today I feel part female and part male. All right? So today, in fact, I will be neutral to you. I will be androgynous. But you know something? If you're trained in this, you got to be A or B, you got to be a boy, you got to be a girl, you know what you're doing? You're taking your inability of your human mind. By the way, this is true for all human minds, because we got to categorize. We always have to categorize, all right? It makes it easier to think about it, but in the end, it's just lazy, all right? So you say, boy or girl, are you a boy or a girl? And then someone is androgynous, and it makes you feel uncomfortable. But just because you feel uncomfortable, does that give you the right to come back to a person who's expressing their freedom of self?
It doesn't.
You can express yourself however you want. But the reason we separate people in sports is to protect people. The same way you don't put a 290-pound heavyweight in the ring with a 150-pound lightweight. I would be considered a lightweight. I weigh about 150, 160 pounds. You would not put me in the ring with
Brock Lesnar.
With Francis Ngannou, even, you know, like whoever, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. No matter how much skill I might possess, the force of their punch will cause my soul to go to the other dimension.
I'm not trying to digress, but isn't that why men shouldn't hit women?
We shouldn't hit women. Why? Why did you bring that up?
Okay, for anyone who's wondering, go and watch our other episode that we filmed with the podcast. What's it? Let me just get what the episode's called.
No. Put your phone down.
No, we're gonna send people to go watch it.
These people don't want to hear this, right? These people have clicked on here to watch me trash Neil deGrasse Tyson, or potentially watch me make a fool of myself.
Where is it?
This is what dealing with a woman looks like.
Did you delete it?
Did I delete our content?
Right. The video is called Women Shouldn't Square Up to Men. Watch that video, watch Michael's reaction as well, and then you'll understand context behind this. But anyway, continue.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
But I think what I would say, right, but what I would say to this, here's where it gets more complicated. Take the issue of transgender athletes in women's sport, for example.
Okay, I got two more sentences and I'll jump right into that.
Okay.
I just want to set the table here.
Yeah.
I'm setting the table where, that if we allow gender to appear on a spectrum, gender expression to appear on a spectrum, as is apparently the case in the real world where people have the freedom to do so, then for you to put your limited capacity to think on a spectrum in a law that inhibits the freedom of others, that's not a free country.
What?
This is not about a free country. This is not about gender expression. People can express themselves however they want, but there needs to be rules and parameters in place. You can't have full-grown men who identify as women going into female sports. We've seen what happens. There's a fighter called Fallon Fox. And Fallon Fox transitioned and entered, I believe, the female bantamweight division. And I will show you the images of the skulls of the women that Fallon Fox faced. It's not pretty. Literally, their cranium was caved in.
Okay.
And Fallon Fox was not an amazing fighter. They weren't a skilled fighter. But the sheer power that a man is able to generate at a similar weight class to a woman is too much. So this isn't about gender expression. This is not about a free country. This is about exercising common sense, which seems to be sorely lacking with Neil deGrasse Tyson. For somebody that claims to be an academic, an astrophysicist, or whatever, he really talks So much shit.
It seems like maybe he's just trying to be very different as well. And kind of like what you're saying before, like he's trying to make it sound so like knowledgeable as well. But he's not living on planet Earth. That's why he keeps saying in real life as well. We are in real life.
Classic example of when a smart person needs to say something stupid so that his position, reputation, and legitimacy is not questioned by the majority that he thinks he's a part of. And that is exactly what is happening here. He is playing to a crowd because he either fears cancellation or he wants to be part of some sort of movement. Someone that works in astrophysics is denying reality right now and trying to paint it up as a freedom of expression thing. It's just the most bizarre thing to watch.
Take it to is I don't disagree with that. I think in a free country, you should be allowed to identify whatever the hell you want to identify as. It's fine. I've got no problem with that.
Okay, so now where are you taking it?
So where I'm taking it specifically to say the issue of transgender athletes in women's sport, which I think has, in an attempt to provide fairness and equality for trans athletes, in women's sport, it doesn't apply the other way in men's sport. In women's sport, it's created a new inequality and unfairness where you have trans women born with superior, powerful male biological bodies who are beginning to beat women with comfortable ease in many sports, and yet they were very unsuccessful comparatively when they competed against other biological males as they were before they transitioned. So my question, I guess, there is, isn't that a clear case where science has to be the determining factor? Because if you remove that from this equation, then you end up with gender-neutral Olympics and women don't ever win an Olympic medal again.
Well, there are certain events that the men, like the uneven bars, you won't find men on the uneven bars. It doesn't work with male physiology.
I mean, Piers laid the smackdown there.
Yeah, Piers is talking facts.
And what's the first thing that comes out of his mouth? Well, there's certain sports. Bruv, we're talking about majority here. Most sports that men enter, almost all of them, they are physically superior to women. That's not a knock on women. That's just the way we're built up. You can definitely find some fringe sports that women are better at, but they are fringe sports. Almost 99% of the time, if you put a man in a female division, he's going to win. It's just the way it is.
You could see as well, though, that he knew that he got given sort of a question that he's not able to answer, but he's always going to try and come out with something that's going to look and sound like he can answer it.
You can run the test. You can take the best female boxer. Let's just say Clarissa Shields. Let's just say for argument's sake, Clarissa Shields is the best female boxer. You put her against Canelo. He'll beat her in a punch. She'll be finished. The fight will be over within the first 10 seconds if Canelo wants it to be. You take Canelo and you put him in the female division, he's going to win every single title in every single weight class. There's no one that will be able to touch him. There is not a single female boxer in human history that can beat Canelo in a fight. Just put that into perspective. And you don't even have to look at the greatest of all time. You can look further down the card. Let's just say Tommy Fury, for argument's sake. He's fought nothing but journeymen. You put the greatest female boxer against him. I guarantee you Tommy Fury will beat her in the fight. It might take him a bit longer because he's not as skilled as Canelo, but I guarantee he's going to win.
Yeah.
And then if you take the two best, let's say Mike Tyson. He is going to brutalize them.
Yeah.
Brutalize them. He could kill them quite easily. Let's forget about fighting. Why do you think there aren't any female Formula One drivers? Do you think it's because of sexism? Or do you think it's because the G-forces that are emitted when the cars are going around the corner are so extreme that it could actually cause some serious physical harm to women?
So you're talking about it strength-wise?
Yeah, you need to be in a certain level of conditioning to be a Formula One driver. It's not a case of just getting in the car and driving it. Those cars are extremely powerful. They go around corners at extreme speeds. And when you go around those corners, the G-forces pull your body one way. And that shit is painful. I've sat in a Formula One car. It is extremely unpleasant to do that for 70 laps. You have to have serious conditioning. Formula One drivers do not just get in that car and start driving them because they're good drivers. They go through some serious training. That's why you don't really see female Formula drivers. Not even just Formula One, Formula 3000, Formula E. There are female drivers. I've seen them before. But why do you think it's male dominated? It's not because of sexism. It's not because of misogyny. It's because it is physically demanding even to the normal man. So only the best of the best do it. So what happens if you have men and and women playing in the same NBA game. You either keep the rims where they are for the men, or you bring them down for the women. Either way, the men are going to dominate there, because if you bring them down for the men, the man's not going to have to exert as much pressure to as much force to jump up and slam dunk. Do you think we would put women on the field with NFL players? Do you want to watch a woman take on Tom Brady? Because that's going to be a car wreck. I could sit here and go through sports, and I can go to football. A team of 15-year-olds beat the best. I think it was the American football team or the English football team. The best that we have to offer, America, was one of them. 15-year-old schoolboys beat them. They didn't just beat them; they battered them. Light work, 15-year-old schoolboys. Hockey, rugby. The list is literally endless. You can keep on going through sports, and you will not find a single female athlete that will come out on top. Not one, and that is not a knock on women. There is some amazing female athletes out there that do things that I'll never be able to do. But within their own profession, there's them and then there's the men. And that's why we separate them. And we separated them to give women a fighting chance amongst themselves and to not brutalize them. What's the point in putting people into a sport if they're never going to win? And that is also why we separate certain types of men when it's combat sports. Because if you put Tony Ferguson in the heavyweight division, he's never going to win a fight. It's not going to happen.
I win a few.
On that one. Okay.
But my point being, there are
so
reasons why we divide the sexes in sport, is my point. And the moment you start allowing gender identity to overcome biology, I see there's a problem.
Okay. So all that means is we are on a frontier that has not been previously breached. Which is, what do you do in a sport where now there's an inherent advantage or disadvantage based on the rules that existed for that sport, whereas previously those advantages or disadvantages didn't exist. So this is not complicated. In high school, in college, and a little bit of graduate school, I wrestled. Okay, I was captain of my high school wrestling team and undefeated. I weighed in high school 190 pounds. Do I wrestle the 125 pounder? No, that would be unfair because I'm 65 pounds heavier, twice as strong, and maybe even faster. So they set up a rule. I only wrestle people my weight. Wrestling has 10 weight categories to make it an interesting contest. Okay, so let me just make this up now, just as a starter point. The transgenderism usually involves hormone readjustments, okay? Testosterone, estrogen. And so we can imagine a future of sports where you're not contesting men against women, you're contesting people in certain brackets of hormone levels. And why not?
Because it doesn't work.
From separating wrestlers into 10.
I hesitate to lecture you about science, Professor Neil deGrasse Tyson. I really do. But I'll tell you why not. Because what they've already tried to do this. They've already tried to reduce hormone levels. What it doesn't do, that process, is reduce body mass or strength, which comes from the male biology.
Right. If you went through puberty as a male, and then transitioned afterwards, then you'll have a bigger, typically bigger, stronger
and that's
body,
where I just think it's unfair. Look, I don't have
reflexes.
a transphobic bone in my body.
Let's get there. I'm getting there.
I want fairness and equality for trans athletes, but there's a big but here, I think.
I'm working my way up to that. So one possibility, like I said, I'm just making this up on the fly, is you have hormone categories. If that does not solve the problem, or to the extent that it doesn't, then you put in other rules that separate who's competing with whom. Like I said, we do this all the time.
Right.
All right? And by the way, are you going to go to Michael Phelps and say, you're genetically taller and we have a floppier...
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Wait, what are the rules though? You presented no solution. You started off by saying this isn't complicated, and then you said just put in other rules. Do you think that these commissions and these bodies and these governing bodies that put these sports together didn't think about things like this? It's much more than just hormones. imbecile. Neil deGrasse Tyson is supposed to be a professor. This is the kind of person that you turn to when you're seeking the truth. And he is so full of shit, it's unbelievable. Piers Morgan is, as far as I'm aware, not an academic. And it only took him a few seconds to call you on your bullshit.
But Piers does still know his shit though.
But anyone would know this. Like, anyone knows why we separate men and women. It's not just a hormonal thing.
Yeah, there is that. It is that. But also as well, that stuff is already taken into consideration when people are competing as well. Like you're saying, with the weight difference in like a boxing ring or a wrestling ring.
Yeah,
that's already taken into consideration.
And do you know what else is crazy? He's saying if you go through puberty. So then what are you advocating that they don't go through puberty and start transitioning before? So how young are we now transitioning children?
Yeah.
What are you actually talking about here? You said the situation isn't complicated, but you are making it complicated. The situation is simple right now. Men are over there and women are over there. And yes, there are genetic freaks like Michael Phelps who are genetically superior to all the other swimmers. But that doesn't make it okay to blur the categories. He's an outlier, just the same way Francis Ngannou was an outlier. The same way loads of people in loads of different sports have been genetically gifted. And there are women that are genetically gifted as well. But those genetically gifted women still lose to the mediocre men. That is the difference here. Why does it take some nobody on YouTube or Piers Morgan to explain to Neil deGrasse Tyson why we have separated the genders? This is a guy that has appeared on Joe Rogan multiple times. By the way, I've never seen Joe Rogan get more worked up than when he was talking to this guy. It pains me to see that someone as influential as him is espousing so much bullshit. I even think we need to listen to the rest of it. He has said enough. Do you want to hear the rest of it?
I just want to hear where he's going with this last point.
Fine, let's torture ourselves.
And webbed fingers. And so we're not going to compete you in this race because you'll have an advantage that other people don't. No, we don't do that, do we? In fact, when you really analyze it, practically every gold medal, record-setting Olympic athlete has some genetic thing going on in them that other people don't have.
They do, but my response my response to that would be that I think Serena Williams has been on record as saying that she would lose to the top 1,000 male tennis players. So my point being, you could be number 999 best in the world as a male tennis player and become immediately, if you decided to identify as a woman, the greatest women tennis player of all time. Is that fair? I don't think it is.
Okay, so now watch. So it turns out, and I've done this, but others have done it as well, but I did it for myself to know it. If you look at world records from world-class athletes, let's say track and field, the 100 meters, men are about 10% faster. 200 meters, 10%. It fluctuates, but on average, it's about 10. The marathon, the men do it about 10% faster, okay? And you look at reflexes, it's about 10% faster. Where you have the biggest differences in weightlifting. But for speed and reflexes, it's about 10% faster. So if you wanted to find out where the top women's athlete would land among men, you look at serving speeds, for example, because that's how fast you can bring the racket to the ball, and find the point where the women's serving speeds match up with the men's serving speeds, okay? And then that's where you would land in the world rankings. What I will tell you is people pay to watch sports not for how good the athlete is, they watch sports for how good the contest is. Let's remind ourselves of this. If we only watched sports for the greatest of athletes, you would never watch college football.
Oh, shut up, man. You're talking so much. I can't listen to this anymore. He's talking so much shit. People practice all their lives and get into the conditions they do to go out there and win a competition. It's not about the audience and tuning in. They're a byproduct. You can't throw the athletes under the bus like that. That's such a self-centered, ridiculous thing to say. I have never heard somebody that claims to be an academic talk this much. Actually, no, I'm chatting shit. There's so many people that talk shit nowadays that you just can't believe anything you hear anymore. These people are bought and sold. He's just trying to appeal to an audience that isn't there. If you read the comment section on this video, people are just roasting him as they should be. He's literally talking shit. This is the prime example of somebody that knows a lot of words and doesn't know where to put them.
I agree with you.
I'm done. I don't want to hear the rest of this shit. If you guys want to watch the rest of this video, you can go on Piers Morgan's channel.